Sorry.
How long's he been there?
Good evening, everyone. We're currently live. This is a meeting of the Council Rock Academic Standards Committee. I would like to welcome everyone, and if we could all go around the table and introduce ourselves very quickly. My name is Kyle McKessie, and I'm a member of the Council Rock Board.
I'm Sue Elliott, Assistant Superintendent.
Bob Francis, I'm a sixth grade teacher at Rolling Mills Elementary School.
Ann Fessman, sixth grade teacher at Frenchboro Elementary.
Gary Desta, Director of K-12 Education.
Wendy Thomas, School Board.
Mike Thornton, School Board.
Denise Brooks, School Board.
Andy Block, School Board.
Robert Frazier, Superintendent.
Mary Ann Malicious, I teach at Goodnow and live in Churchville.
Nancy Carroll, Newtown Borough.
Margaret Jones, sophomore at North.
Matt Frederickson, IT Director.
Shyla Jackson, Professional Development.
Gerald Grubb, School Board Director.
Thank you, everyone. We have some esteemed guests joining us this evening. I'm going to allow Dr. Elliott to introduce them, and let's get started.
Absolutely. So thank you, Kyle. We have three items on our agenda this evening. The first one is a brief presentation by our students from Council Rock South, who are part of the NASA Hunch Project. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Fred Bauer to explain that and introduce the students.
Thanks. Again, thank you very much for having us here. We try to get out and see you guys at least once a year and update you on our projects and what we're doing. The Hunch Project, again, Hunch stands for High School Students United with NASA Creating Hardware. Sorry, it's a lousy acronym, but it is what they give us to work with. What basically we do is when the astronauts come down off the space station, they meet with the NASA engineers and they say, all right, what types of things do you need on the space station? What things, priorities? So 2 categories, mission critical, goes directly to the NASA engineers. Things that are not mission critical come out to us. So each year we get categories of materials and the students wind up deciding what they want to design, what they want to work on. NASA usually gives us some priorities, and this year we've had 56 students on the team from throughout South, and they do not necessarily have to have work class. So after school group, we work during school, we work after school, before school, weekends, every possible minute they can from September straight through until 2 weeks ago we were at our final review with the NASA engineers on the project. This year, we'll see in a second the diversity of some of the stuff that they were working on. We are the only team that has diversified as much as we had with the variety of projects the students worked on. So, thank you for our great video.
In theory, yes.
Very good.
Yeah. There we go. It'll come in a second.
try to achieve this goal with a carpet box that utilizes a series of shocks and rubber vibration absorption material known as swirl tape. We are doing this project for the single storage locker to go to the ISS. It's taken years of development through various teams of Vive to get to the point we're at today. We've mixed knowledge from past years with our current experiments to create the best possible design for our product. We hope to accomplish for NASA a way to transport fragile payloads to and from space. Everyone on our team has benefited from this process by learning the intense procedure behind developing and manufacturing a product. We like to thank SBS for all of their contributions.
Hi, we're the mass measuring team from Council Rock High School South in Holland, Pennsylvania, and we're out of the Honor Engineering Robotics class. Our project is designed to measure the mass of both living and non-living objects. And right now, we're attempting to assist scientists on ISS on an osteoporosis lab on Earth.
We have been testing our linear theory by accelerating our system with the hanging mass. In our final project, the hanging mass will be replaced by a linear actuator, which will negate the need for gravity and make the device more compact. We're hoping for a 100 millimeter stroke, which will include a 50 millimeter testing distance and a 50 millimeter deceleration distance. We're hoping that because our linear acceleration will allow us to accelerate at a slower rate while maximizing results, we'll be able to mask both living and non-living objects with exceptional accuracy while minimizing stress to living subjects.
This project, we learned the value of teamwork and individual leadership roles. We found that everyone can be a leader, even in the smallest of roles. And lastly, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Mark Penn, for donating the M5 and M4 stage that we use in our project, and for all the time they spent helping us and disseminating their knowledge. Thank you.
Hello, we are MICE, which stands for Mass Indication Containment Experiment. We are the mouse container group representing Council Rock High School South, located in Holland, Pennsylvania. As a portion of our honors engineering and robotics class here at South, we have been designing and constructing a mouse containment device in order to reduce stress while having the capability to assist in massing a mouse for the purpose of conducting osteoporosis testing in space.
With our constant dedication and determination, we believe that we have created several versions of a containment chamber that prioritizes mouse safety and comfort. Our containers are constructed with materials that our mouse will not chew through. They are made from absorbent materials that have the capability to soak up urine, and they are easily cleaned. Above all, we prioritize mouse safety, and we have been able to clean our containers in order to reduce movement, so that an accurate result may be provided.
As students, our containment chamber has allowed us to cultivate our innovative thinking skills. We have strengthened our team working skills and have learned to be resourceful in our use of materials and communication with those more experienced in specific areas. Our project has allowed for us to be exposed to areas of study that we have never experienced before.
The education in which our work for NASA has provided us has created an endless array of options for our future. Personally, I started to consider engineering as my future major for college, because I love the ability to create something useful and see it being put to practice. Our project has opened new doors for us in engineering. Finally, we would like to thank the many teachers at South who have worked to support us along the way.
So let me stop at this point. I'll come back and talk towards the end, but let me turn it over to our team lead, Kenny Myers, senior.
Well, so the product that you just saw in the video, I was going to show you real quick. We brought them here today. Bring us. This was the waste containment experiment with the funky dance music in the beginning. And that's just for putting trash in and out of in space.
These are the mouse containment chambers we built. They're both 3D printed and they both are. This is the vibration isolation box experiments. What we're doing is we're reducing vibrations in the rocket launch, so that way we put fragile materials in and they won't be damaged.
And actually, a lot of the materials that we use for our mass measuring device were donated to us very graciously, so we had to give them back, so we don't have our prototype for it here.
And then we have our fifth project. That wasn't in the video, but it was started by, it wasn't asked for by NASA, but it was thought of by our students. And this is called Zed, and it is something that you drop from a drone flying in the sky, so that you can get things in zero G without a drop tower, because when you need a very expensive drop tower that's very tall, so you can drop it, so it can feel zero gravity. But this is a lot cheaper than a drop tower. And so those are the projects. And so basically this program just allows students to have a more professional like environment feel, because the way Mr. Barron does it with us is he lets us go on our own. He doesn't really guide us too much. He lets us be the leaders of our teams and make a lot of important decisions, and that gives us like a business world aspect that we don't need to get in many school events or school projects. And like other teams that are part of the Hunch program, they don't get that either. So the way Mr. Barron does it is a very helpful tactic. And yeah, it's a really good program. It helps us a lot. It helps us make choices on our own. I know that like a lot of times I have to like email people. Sometimes I forget. Like, that's my own fault, but like he's not on my back hounding me about it. Like it's responsibility of you, and it's really important to us. Anyone else want to share their experience?
Yeah, I mean, I will. For 6 months throughout my senior year, I was in an MT class. So at the age of 17, I was with 30-year-old firefighters who had been doing it for years, and it's a lot of decision-making, time crunch, and you don't always have the right answer in front of you. So this project, leading the mass measuring team, helped me with management of time, decision-making, stuff like that, and it allowed me to kind of get that edge that I wouldn't necessarily have gotten in high school, because this real world where you don't have the answer, not even your teacher has the answer, you're approaching it the way that you want to. No one has the answer. So it really helped me out.
And another thing, by the way, is we also do work with companies, as Matt had said, with the Gracious Donations. I also have a very expensive speaker in the back of my car right now that I got a return, but that was donated by the company too. And we actually get in contact with all these big companies, and we actually like work with them.
Yeah, we got a super sensitive force gauge. It's worth about $1,500 that we still have to return. But
we're working with actual hardware, and that's really cool and important to us. And
so, as you mentioned in the video, both of us actually switched our majors in college because of this class. I personally was put into the class without choosing it, and I was originally going into architecture, and then because of this project, I changed the rest of my life. Basically. So I'll be biomedical engineering now. Wow. We changed to your NASA. Yeah.
And then for me, there was a similar situation in which I was between nursing and engineering, and I'm in a very limited background in science, just mostly school classes that you have to take every year. And having the opportunity to take Mr. Bever's engineering robotics, I had no idea what I was going into. And the lack of experience that I came in with didn't affect me because I learned throughout. I was able to ask questions, and I was able to work with other students who did have knowledge in those areas. And because of that, I'm going to go into engineering for plastics and polymers. And like Hannah said, I don't think we could have gotten that experience had we not taken this class, had we not seen all the different things that we can do with science. And just being able to work in a project-based environment, I think teaches us in a different way than what we learn in the normal classroom setting.
Were you here before about plastics and polymers?
For what?
Were you here before from the academic standards?
No.
Okay, we had somebody else doing plastics and polymers too.
That was the science group.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
And another big thing, like feeling responsibility and all that, but like honestly, it was so much fun to just do this project. Like they came in, and like a lot of people in high school, it's like, okay, time to figure out college, time to figure out what I'm doing. I didn't really have any idea that I was like, I always enjoyed engineering and computer science. And then I came to Hunch and all, and I realized, wait, I enjoy doing this. I remember spending hours in front of a computer, frying my brain with my friend to the point where you couldn't remember what you were doing. But it was so great, and you learned just like so much about like what you want to do. And it was a lot of work, but like when I look back on it, it's just such an amazing experience. And like being able to go to our final review and all, and just say, I have put so much time and effort into this project, and see the fruit of your labors. It was really amazing and fun experience.
And just speaking about food and labels, all these products up here, we built them. I helped with my team work on that divide box, and it's kind of hard to build a box. You'd be surprised, actually. The first time we built it was kind of rocky. That's like the fifth prototype. But like we actually built these, and it's something cool that most kids don't get to do in high school. You use You use tools, right? Yes.
Yeah, we actually 3D printed a lot of this.
All the stuff that's red is 3D printed.
Model.
So I have an observation and a question, and Fred, you may have to do the question. And the observation is, I think this is great, because one of the things which I'm always amazed at is when some people come out of a course of engineering about college, they have these large, grandiose ideas, they have to work on these massively large, complex problems, and they don't realize the intensity of trying to solve kind of a small, discrete problem, and that it's not just like throw the crap together and it will work, it has to be engineered. You know, you're right, when you're adults and you explain to your parents that you're working on a waste disposal system, they go, oh, what you do with the other 7 hours of your day? They don't realize the complexity, so I think this is a wonderful opportunity for you to look and really understand, because you're in what ultimately becomes a business application that says, at Ford, there are people who are spending their time designing the wiper blades, because that's an essential element. They're highly engineered, but someone has to do it. Everybody doesn't design the shape of the car, so I think that's great. Fred, I guess my question though is, some of the things that the students have come up with potentially have have intellectual property components to them, which are unique or may be unique. Does the program assign those IP ownership to NASA, or is the IP ownership something that either individual students or the school district could pursue?
It's an interesting question. It's come up a number of times. We've discussed this with Florence Gold, our director. We fall under a category where in one facet we are working for NASA. We are cheap labor for NASA, if you want to put it that way. However, they are also students of the school district. So therefore, working under the equipment and guides of the school district, that proprietary nature falls under the district ownership. However, because they're working with and for NASA, we fall into this gray area. I think NASA would agree, because NASA is a public agency and all NASA products are actually owned by the taxpayers in the United States. They fall under the category of, yes, they would have rights and abilities with that released from the school district if we actually went to that point.
I just thought this was something worth the exploration, not to be silly, but I'm looking at your mouse containers, and build a better mousetrap. I'm sorry, I had to say it, but you wonder about that. That's an application that comes up not only at NASA, but in vitro labs where you're working with mice. So I just wondered. That's why I asked the question.
Well, thank you. And it's something that maybe we do have to look more into.
Well, I think it's something which
interested in.
We have a former superintendent who was an IP attorney. Maybe it makes sense to have a polite conversation with him.
Were all the projects accepted? Is NASA going to use them?
We have not heard back from NASA's committee yet. However, the ratings we got back were very, very good. Matter of fact, I just got a letter from Florence Gold this morning about how impressed they were. One of our projects, they actually want us to work on over the summer, and that's for Johnson Space Flight Center, for an independent project that will include other schools in STEM programs throughout the country. But they're using the ZED project, the Zero Gravity Drop, as a milestone for a new development project. And we've kind of led the way on a lot of these. And to try to clarify some of these things, and I know these guys are very excited to say what they're saying, by the way, none of it, I purposely did not review any of the statements they made. I wanted them to say what they wanted to say to you. So in some cases, this is the first time that I've heard any of this discussion. Which right now, I'm actually pretty taken by, to be very honest with you. So if we take a look briefly, and I don't want to take up a lot of your time, So if we take a look at this, the vibration isolation project, the aspect of that project actually started 5 years ago when the students came up with the question to NASA: if we were to send an embryo onto the International Space Station, not human embryo, but an embryo onto the International Space Station, and allow it to develop and then propagate, obviously, multiple embryos, then return the second generation back to the Earth, would it survive in a 1G atmosphere? So the idea is, once we get into these long-range missions, if humans would have a relationship in space and wind up developing the next generation, could that next generation return to Earth and survive under a 1G atmosphere? And that was the development of this theoretical question. Now, as you said, from business, it's not always that end result goal that comes into play. Well, the first problem came in: how do we get the embryo onto the space station because the vibrations are so high that basically you scramble the egg? That's where this project developed. Once NASA saw what we were doing, they have asked us to return to this project every year so far and just focus on that. They love the overall goal, but they want to see a small containment vessel that will carry fragile objects onto the space station. This is NASA. You think that they would have this kind of thing, and they didn't. The mice group, this seems again like a very simple thing, but that group is one independent entity, but they teamed up also with the mass measuring device. The Japanese sent on board the space station mice this past January, to study osteoporosis. And in concept of doing that, what is the first way to see if a life form is healthy? Well, the first thing the doctor does with you is to weigh you when you get into the office. They have no way right now of massing the mice that they sent on board the space station. So we immediately were tasked with this responsibility. And in doing so, they have to find a way not only of getting the mice contained, but keeping them healthy mentally, so that it's under a very low stress level. Once they do that, transferring it to the mass measuring device and isolating that so that they can find out if the mass has changed. Amazing small problem, but really fascinating. These guys sat down and started developing containers, but then decided that we need mice in order to see how well we can transfer these. So they developed into that side of it, which really sped up their understanding of how to contain this. And dealing with one gravity where the mouse is always going to wind up in your hand is really cool. But once you get into zero gravity, now the mouse is all over the place. So how do you keep the stress levels down? Was one of the things that you really had to look at. The mass measuring device, most of the teams that looked at this, and this is one of the things that Florence was so amazed at with our kids, are using rotational concepts. So they are spinning up the mice in order to create an artificial gravity in order to measure their mass. Well, that's going to add stress to the mouse. In this case, these guys went with a linear acceleration at a very low rate in order to reduce the stress level, proved their concept, created the prototype. NASA was totally blown away by the site. They're not ready to launch this, but they've given all the documentation to next year's group. And NASA has asked us to continue on with both of these projects for future development. Throwing a piece of trash away on the space station is rather interesting. If you take a piece of trash and put it into the trash can and pull your hand out, the trash comes out with it, along with everything else that's in the container. So their parameters are pretty tight, but these guys are developing a concept within NASA. And again, their review from an astronaut and who was on the space station and their review from NASA engineers were terrific in that they, the whole idea that the astronaut came to them and absolutely ripped the project apart from a very practical standpoint. And the team was devastated by that. 5 minutes later, the engineer team came over and they praised it one end to the other. So it was amazing to see, they got a huge feedback from that, to see the differences from using the KISS method to using the concepts of engineering design and the technicality of things. So what a learning experience, and that was up in New York, where we just got back from our final review. So we're getting all this feedback. ZED was done because ZED was the drop tower. We're currently working with Portland State University, and we're also working with NASA's drop tower in Ohio, where we're designing capillary experiments for both of those. The question was, this team decided that what they wanted to find out was, can we create our own drop tower so that we don't have to constantly ship our product out to there in order to do simple, quick tests. So using drone technology, we have 3 licensed drone pilots at school, so that are certified by the FAA. And we are currently setting up drop experiments at the school, but now NASA wants us to expand this so that they write in a white paper that is going to be distributed for all STEM schools to use in applying this in the program. We are an honors engineering class. We fall into the category of STEM, but STEM is kind of a punch word in our industry. These guys are engineers. These guys have applied energy. I consider myself to be extremely lucky because, and this is something that I realized this year, we look at PLCs, you're all talking about academic standards, we're looking at PLCs and how to work with other departments and other classrooms. These guys were committed, I am seeing the benefit of all these other teachers' work. They walk in and they write technical papers that absolutely are at a level of professional standard that NASA does not have to ask us to do rewrites on. They are amazed right away. Their math, their physics, their application of what they do. The engineers are not questioning their math because it's all there. It's right in front of them. Their public speaking skills. They had to speak in front of large audiences, small audiences, and at multiple levels. Part of the team just got back from Rolling Hills Elementary, where they presented, Hillcrest Elementary, and they just got done presenting to the 5th and 6th grade groups there. Again, I put these guys in front of 100 elementary students, and they are able to take these concepts and bring them to that level and show the students what's coming up. Being an employee of NASA while being a high school student is an amazing concept. So I think it's really important that you see what they're doing. And that's why I am very thankful that you can live the time to come here and see. If you have any quick questions, we'll be happy, very happy to answer.
I just wanted to add, we went to Hillcrest yesterday, and like even with the elementary school kids, some of the questions they were asking, like, of course we got, have you guys into space? But then, of course we got that, but I showed them the trash can, and I let them all stick their hands in and throw away some trash. And one girl just sat there and said, well, what if we tried this? And I said, that's a great question. She said, and what if we tried this, and then you can add a button to it so we can do this, and then what if we tried all these things, and like, she's in 5th or 6th grade, and she's already trying to do what we're doing, and her teacher came up to me and said, yeah, what if my little one was asking you questions about it, and she was really into it, and there were so many kids that were just from our small presentation, like, this is what we do, they were like asking the same questions we ask, and trying to just, you do that same process as us, and that was really easy.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say also, I have a couple of students now that, like you were saying, we spend a lot of time on the websites for the 3D printing, but we can't actually execute the plan. But they really look up to you guys knowing that they don't have to wait until after college or their future careers. It's encouraging for them to know that this is coming up in middle school and high school and not 30 years down the road.
Matt and Kenny, you were both outed for being graduating seniors. So 2 questions. There may be others. If there are, speak up. The question is, obviously, where are you going? Second of all, if you had an interview, did they ask you about your work that you were doing with this program?
So we'll just go down the line of seniors.
I'm not sure you've seen right.
Hi, I'm Sophia Green. I'm going to Drexel University, where the 5-year co-op plan. I'm going to be studying computer science, and I want to minor in either electrical or mechanical engineering.
Did they ask about your work?
Oh, I didn't have an interview. I just applied.
I'm Matt Lashner. I'm going to Drexel for the 5-year co-op with computing and security technology. And I didn't have an interview at Drexel, but for my job, they did ask me. And one of the very interesting things about emergency medicine is that it's all based on experience. And I interviewed when I was 17. Going on 18, you have to be 18. So I had 0 experience. And I walked in and I gave them my paperwork, and my interviewer looked down. She was like, "Wow, you have all the experience. You got the job." I mean, she told me that before she interviewed me. Just because she was looking at NASA. She was like, "You work for NASA and you're 17? All right, you're in." So, very valuable.
I'm Hannah Mickelson. I'm also going to Drexel for biomedical engineering. They didn't ask me about it, but I didn't have an interview either. I had it on my Common App application, and then I did write multiple scholarships about it for like experience, the same kind of thing.
I'm Olivia Burkheim. I'm going to Penn College of Technology as a plastics and polymers engineer with a minor in mathematics. And when I went there, it wasn't necessarily an interview, but I talked with some of the professors there when I went on tour and talked to students. And you know, they were asking like, what was your background in science? And being able to say that I took an engineering class and then being able to talk about project-based learning, which is something that they really appreciate, something that they focus on at their school for their engineering program. They're very focused on how we do it in high school versus how they do it in college. So getting to have that back and forth with them is very nice.
No, I'm Kay Meyer. I'm going to the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm going to the Swanson School of Engineering for mechanical and material sciences. I'm not really sure yet. I'm going because I'm excited. But I didn't have an interview either, but I wrote about the NASA project in my application and stuff. And also, I know the engineers were very competitive this year. They actually denied me and said I could be waitlisted, but then I just went to the regular Dietrich School of Arts and Sciences. And then they, the head of the engineering school emailed me back and said that he wanted to have me in the school because they had open slots available. And I think that the NASA project helped me get into that because it was very competitive this year.
The reason I asked the question, really, just to let you know, look forward 4 years later. When people come to interview college graduates about what have they done, so often the struggle with college graduates is they don't have things that are concrete that you can speak about and talk about knowledgeably. People talk in these interviews often about what they intend to do, their aspirational discussions. It is an incredible differentiator for a student to be able to talk about something they've done, something they've encountered, something they actually have hands on. It just comes out as passion, it comes out as knowledge and pathway. So this was great for the hurdle you got to, but still use that same energy and vigor and interest in your next, because that's what will make the difference. I think your discussion with the EMT situation is just typical. People have something to talk to you about, you're knowledgeable about, and they love it, and it really helps you.
I'm a parent from the local community, and I'm sitting on the edge of my seat just listening to you young folks talk about your accomplishments. And I really applaud your efforts, and kudos to the leader here, the teacher that has created that environment. What was so exciting to hear when you went down the line, you really talked, you could hear the passion, you can hear your energy, you can hear the excitement. What was intriguing was many of you walked in the science and in the classroom, and you didn't even know what to expect. And it became fun to you. So my question to you, I have a middle school student who loves science, but I'm sure if he heard you all speak about how it became, what it became to you and what it is today, it would intrigue him when he went into high school to want to be you or want to do what you're doing. And I hear you're going to elementary, but and this is Council Rock South. Yeah. I'd like to know what you're doing with the middle school. And some of those folks are now going to be coming over to high school. So you can make the engineering program that much more exciting to that transition?
Because of the final review being so late this year, and they were working around the clock, to try to get their projects in on time. We did not get an opportunity to get out to the middle schools and elementary schools as much this year. Normally, we visit all the elementary schools and all the middle schools before the end of the year. This year just got really tight because our final review this year was so late. It was, I'm sorry, science. We did, oh yeah, that's true. Science night, which was the last school board meeting, these guys presented to all the elementary school students that showed up at science night in South. And that was open to the entire district. So they did these presentations, and to a greater extent, with all their equipment back at school. Actually, they had a full setup that they presented to NASA, which pretty much blew the competition away.
Really, congratulations.
It's very impressive. We can't thank you all enough for coming, and Fred, we're very lucky to have
Wish all of you good luck going to your colleges, especially the ones to Drexel. That's my honor. And I think it's important not only for these people to know what you're doing, but for the entire community. And could we get some of your video on the TV channel?
Absolutely.
All right.
And
Thank you.
we'll send it right over. Unless Matt, you just want to transfer.
Whatever, if you send it to me, it's
All
easier.
right, we'll send it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we're going to move on to our other items for this evening. The next item that we have is our technology plan. Some of you have gotten, like, Jerry, you need this. So with our technology plan, what we're going to present to you tonight, there are three aspects to this plan. The first part of it, or the first part of our presentation, really deals with the Council Rock Educational Technology Standards, which you have a copy in front of you. And the second part will deal with actually budgetary items. And we're going to really link the technology plan and the budget. Part of it really links to this year's budget that the board will be voting on next week. And then we'll also connect how our technology plan links to our current educational initiatives. So we're going to start with really looking at the Council Rock Educational Technology Standards. And when you think about student learning, and we think about all the things that contribute to that, of course, there's the teaching aspect of it, the curriculum that we use, and technology is really a tool to help us and help our students to learn and help our teachers to work effectively. I have a quote from Albert Einstein that I think is really fitting, that computers are incredibly fast, accurate, and stupid. Humans are incredibly slow, inaccurate, and brilliant. Together, they are powerful beyond imagination. And I think that that is one thing that we want to really emphasize, that technology itself is just a tool, but it's a tool that can really enhance things and support student learning and teacher work, and we're going to really focus on that this evening. So we're going to start with the curriculum aspect, and I have three folks here this evening who are going to really present the Council Rock Educational Technology Standards to you and talk a little bit about how we got to where we are today. And these standards as a curriculum framework will come before the board in July, the July board meeting for approval. So you're getting your first, actually your second glimpse of these, because you had an introduction to these in March when we had academic standards in March. So tonight I have with me Shyla Jackson and Bob Francis and Hannah Pressman. So I'm going to turn it over to them and they're going to go through the standards.
Okay, so our standards, this has been something that has been a long time coming and something that we've worked on for many years. So this is a little bit of a labor of love, and we decided to call it Council Rock Educational Technology Standards, which is CRETS. So we have our own fun little acronym for it. And some of the background with this is years ago, and then again just 2 years ago, we researched all the schools in the area and schools in other states as well. And we just wanted to kind of get an idea of what other schools were doing to try to standardize technology within their school district. Certainly when you have as many elementary schools as we have, making sure that our students are all getting access to the same types of technology and learning the same type of things within each of their classrooms. And based on that, we developed this spreadsheet. And within this, what we did is we used the National Educational Technology Standards, which were created by ISTE, and also the PA core standards as well. And we combined those two. Some of them overlap a little bit, so we combined them where it was appropriate and put them together within this document. And then we went through and decided, based on our school district and what happens within our district, you know, where things should be actually taught. And we came up with this system where you'll see, like on the first page, it'll show you like where things should actually be introduced. And we put this in red. So that's basically where a teacher just familiarizes students with it, or a little bit of hands-on experience. And then the reinforced area where students actually have some hands-on experience with this. Proficient, where students can explain the concept or demonstrate the skill. And up through application, where the student builds upon mastery to extend application of that particular knowledge and skill. So you'll notice if you look in the document, we have each of the standards. They're highlighted in yellow, and then there's substandards underneath that. And for instance, if you take a look at 1E and 1F, you'll see that underneath it, under the standard part, it says PA core. So that's one of the ones that also ties into PA core. So it's a net standard, but it's also a PA standard. So we just kind of grouped those two together. And we went through each of the grade levels and actually listed where things should be introduced, reinforced, reinforced, proficient, and where things should be application. And you'll see that through, and Bob's going to give you a couple examples where, you know, actual hard examples of where this is already occurring within our school district. And then on the right-hand side, we went through and put in, and this certainly is not a full list, but some of the unit activities, just some suggestions where these standards are already taking place within our elementary schools. And then ICANN, the ICANN statements, just so it's put into student-friendly language. And you'll see that there are some things that are not introduced until second, third, or fourth grade. And then most of the things are not in application until high school. So we're currently focusing more on the elementary just because that's where this fits. That's where this is actually occurring. By the time students get to high school, they're already at the application level. And in some instances, the middle school, which would be a wonderful thing when you think about our middle school technology program. So as we implement this, when they get to middle school, all of these students from all these different classrooms will all be coming to the middle school. And middle school teachers will be able to say, okay, I know exactly what these students at least will know in the technology area. So that's kind of the plan. So we did a lot of research on districts in the area to make sure that we not only were up to speed, but surpassed them as well. So this is a very exciting thing. And not only did we put this together, but we had teachers from all the different schools. We had librarians. We'd ever come together, and we spent a couple days going through all of this just to make sure that everyone was in agreement. And then after that, they brought it back to their schools. The librarians have looked at it. Administrators have looked at it, tech coaches have looked at it, and made sure that everyone felt very strongly that this was going to be a really good fit for Council Rock. And also it was presented at both the superintendent meeting and also the principals meetings as well, so that everyone has a really good idea, and we were able to get feedback from everyone and incorporate that with this too. So it's really a full district kind of document. Yes, everyone's very excited about it, because if you think about it, you know, the fourth grade teacher, now no matter where the fourth grade teacher is teaching, they're going to know exactly when their students come in. Okay, I know they're going to know this, this, and this.
You should have buy-in. I'm just making sure.
Yeah, we had a lot of buy-in. People were very excited about it.
How is the professional development? When do they get, or is it?
We're going to talk about that.
I got to run, but I want to ask a quick question. This is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Because of the consistency piece, that was always something that I think we've always been kind of school-centric, and I think consistency is important. From a hardware, infrastructure, network, you know, all those types of things,
It's coming up later.
Okay, so but are we poised to support that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, excellent. Thank
part
you.
of our budget for this year for the district, and going forward for the next 3 years, we have a 3-year budget plan for technology.
Awesome, I'm in.
But you can start.
Sorry, I have to leave y'all.
I like it. That was
I'm in,
nice
and he
and easy.
leaves.
I'm in. I like it. That's all we really needed to hear was I'm in. That's
Meeting
good.
could be a lot shorter.
All right. So we're gonna move on to, Bobby's gonna talk a little bit more about the standards in particular, just to give you a couple.
So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at that progression and that scale that we use to break things down with the introduction and the reinforcement of proficiency in the application. In the first place, we're gonna take a look at that is in standard number 1 for empowered learner. And 1E can be found on page 3 of your packet. Using illustrations and multimedia to aid in comprehension and clarifying information. So realistically, this is something that you're going to see the progression from the introduction in grades kindergarten through 2nd, where this is something where those teachers will be introducing by using strategies that they might have previously used in reading class, where they would ask students to use pictures or use visuals to help them learn to decode words and to figure out what's going on so that they can progress through reading. This is now something that we can use the technology to help introduce and to do the same types of things, but we can start to make the students more comfortable with using the technology to do those things. As we progress through, you see in grades 3 and 4, that's where we're going to reinforce that. And a lot of times what you'll see is this is an area where students become more comfortable with videos, and we can use that as an aspect now to continue to improve their learning. So we'll start off with just with pictures and move into videos. Again, we're moving through that scale and progressing. In 5th grade, as Shiloh had introduced, this is an area now where we're expecting that students would be able to implement that on their own to become proficient with now doing something with that on their own, where they can begin to put it into a presentation or into a project, and they can demonstrate the learning that they've had in those younger grade levels. And then as we reach 6 through 12, we would expect that they would be able to apply that to any of the situations that they would put into the classroom, where it culminates then that they have the understanding of how to use that technology and then how to do that in any particular situation they would be presented with.
So pretty much by high school, they've lucked out, those teachers, because they'll know that, I mean, I'm just going through it because most of these are meant for proficiency by middle school. So by the time you're in high school, there's going to be an expectation that they've mastered all these things.
And kids know how to apply it to their learning.
It's pretty great.
So the next standard that we're going to look at is standard 5, which is a computational thinker. And 5B, students collect data and identify relevant data sets using digital tools to analyze them and represent data in various ways to facilitate problem solving and decision making. The reason we chose this one as the second one is because you can see that the way that the committee has broken it down and the way that we've assigned the scale, this isn't something that's even introduced until 2nd grade, because the depth of the standard gives more clout to what is necessary to be known by the student. So it starts at a further grade level. So you can see in grades 2 through 4 is where it's going to be introduced. And when we're introducing this would be, student could use online tools. They could learn and begin to use Google Forms, or to take the Google Forms to learn how surveys work and then how that data is compiled. And that's something that can be introduced by those teachers by using those as daily classroom tools. As we progress through and the reinforcement happens in 5th grade, this is where they might begin to start to create those with the assistance of the teacher, where they can see how that's going to happen. This could also happen through various things which we've spoken about before, with Excel and things like that, where students can be taught how to make graphs and how to use that data, where the tool will help them to create that graph. Again, as we get to 6th grade, we're looking for proficiency, where the student should be able to do some of these things on their own and then to gain direction from the teacher. And then as we had spoken with the last standard, from grades 7 through 12, they should be able to apply this. And again, as you spoke, by the time they get to the high school, they should be applying most of these standards.
So how are they actually learning Excel? Like, where does that get introduced?
So the introduction would be, maybe to see a teacher that has things organized in that fashion. The use of it is the demonstration, where they could see the types of things that they could use that for. So it might be just taking a survey in class, putting that data into an Excel file, and then demonstrating to the students how you could turn that in and make that into a line graph. And then, as they progress and as we get to the proficiency stage, that would be something that we would maybe then ask them to do as an assignment, to take a survey of the class on a question that they develop, and then to use that program to be able to create a graph that goes along with it.
So the standards aren't actually saying like, at this point, you're going to be introduced to Excel. These are tools that could be applied to these
To different areas of technology that we have, yes.
Excel is taught in the middle school, so that's where they'll be able to apply it because that's where it's taught in depth, that particular
Okay, so
program.
Excel is taught in the
Middle school program. So every
Part of the
student in our
program.
district, yes, they have Excel
And
when they get
actually,
to 7th grade.
they teach Excel and they teach Google Sheets
Yes.
because we have Office 365 and Google Docs. The middle school teachers are covering both. So they're learning the concepts of a spreadsheet, not just Excel or just Google Sheets. And I would say that the most common exercise where it's first introduced to them, these concepts at the elementary school, is where they dump out a bag of M&Ms and they count the number of red M&Ms, the number of brown M&Ms, and they put them in a spreadsheet, and that's where it gets started. And that's my favorite exercise they have because they let me eat the M&Ms when they're done.
You should have demonstrated that here. So then I always think in terms of like if they're learning a certain program or if they only can become advanced and really do this if they have the continual exposure to it. So you're saying that, I'm just using Excel because you use it as an example. So they're getting some baseline stuff through the elementary, then in middle school, they're directly getting it because that's part of the curriculum. So then there is an expectation in the high school that they know this and then it could get incorporated.
Exactly.
So that they are using it with, you wouldn't have a situation, for example, where a high school student would come through high school and never touch that again?
I don't think so. What we're starting to see too is a lot of cross-pollination in disciplines. For example, you've met Holly from North who teaches English. She uses a lot of this stuff that has nothing to do specifically with English. She uses a lot of technology. I've seen the kids tabulate stuff in spreadsheets for her, like the number of times a character speaks, and so that they're really analyzing the stuff that they're reading, and they're using these tools to help them do that. So we're seeing a lot of that. George, who teaches math and physics and that kind of stuff, kids are writing. So there's that whole cross-pollination. So they're using the tools in disciplines that aren't traditionally considered where you would find that. So I would say, yeah, it's everywhere.
And I think as the students get to this point and all teachers realize like, okay, this is what the expectation is, they'll be much more apt to.
This is going to set that up.
Right, this is exactly the whole idea behind it, is so that then teachers will have so many more resources available, and students will have so many more opportunities, with their projects.
Tom teaches at the Sloan School.
Yeah,
high
I
school.
think at the Sloan School, one thing I've noticed is that, certain kids have different skills. I teach marketing, and one of the assignments is, okay, pick a country, and you're gonna make a brochure advertising the country, how much does it cost to fly there, blah, blah, blah. I have spent some time just showing some kids how to work publisher while other people, yeah, brochure, I'll be done in 10 minutes. Jimmy been done, but this group, everyone's gonna come in at the same skill level that I'm sure somewhere publishers going to be taught, and they'll already have that skill set, and I don't have to spend time teaching one group one thing and not the other. Excel's the same way, where I teach yearbook as well. Okay, survey this, what's the most popular movie, what's the second most popular, do the survey, do it in a spreadsheet. They'll be able to do that instead of me having to teach that part of it to people that were never exposed to it for whatever reason.
But you'll notice within this document, we don't list specific programs for a reason, because they change. And spreadsheets, if you can use Excel, then you can, most of the time, you can figure out the other type of programs that are similar to that. So we don't have anything mentioned within the document just because, well, at least within the.
No, I get that, but my question was more along the lines of being exposed to the technology does not mean that it's fully integrated, doesn't mean that it's getting reinforced as they go. But it feels like now this will help
Yes.
improve that.
Mhm.
Yeah, because if
The idea is by high school.
if
they
you
will
use
be-
it once and then you don't use it again,
Right.
it was good while it lasted, but it's not something that you carry through and expand on.
Exactly.
So you mentioned the training aspect of professional development, so Hannah's gonna talk a little bit about that.
So in terms of implementing these, one of the biggest advantages was that on our technology standards committee, we have representation from every school, primary and intermediate or elementary. So we now have people at every building in both levels that are experts on the standards, spent time making ICANN statements, lessons that go along with it to basically show everyone that this shouldn't be a burden. It really is something that you're already doing and you can use it as a tool. We also realized that different needs in terms of different schools on what certain staff members already know how to do, what they want to learn how to do, what they would like to see professional development wise. So we've worked with the principals to make sure that they're able to ask their staff members, what do you already feel comfortable doing? What do you want to learn more about? And then work with the tech coaches and the members of the committee to create professional development opportunities for their staff members. So that way you're not already telling your staff members things that they already know. Or the other way, telling them things that they have no idea what you're talking about. And that also goes to the first year, we're planning on just having it be a year of introduction and exploration, which I think is something that teachers are really going to appreciate because it's not going to be, here are the standards, figure out what to do with them. It's more so, here are the standards, now let's work together to figure out how you can use them in your everyday classroom, and it doesn't just have to be a technology lesson. It could be an English lesson, or a math lesson, or a science lesson while using technology.
And how does that information, if you've done something fantastic in your profession in English, how does that get out to everybody else?
I think from building to building, we can use the tools that we have now. We have things already set up for us online that the teachers are using. We use assessments and tools like that. I know I spent time this summer uploading things onto like the internet and places that teachers can go to, so that way you don't have to recreate the wheel every time. And then from your building, that when we use staff meetings and extra time for our professional development, we set aside special technology time, so that way things that we're already doing in the classroom, we can distribute that to everyone, so everyone can learn from it.
And the PLCs too will also be a large part of this.
That's right.
And you also see the terminology of their technology integration specialist, which is part of the budget plan in our 3-year plan. That specific position is a position that will be going across multiple schools at the elementary level. So the ability to be able to communicate across schools and share things that are happening in different buildings, that person will be able to also share and tap into the expertise across the buildings and help kind of bring that connectivity across.
Is this a position?
Yes, if it's approved in the budget, it's a position.
And
we'll clarify it a little bit more. It is a 1-year position at the elementary level, and then it's going to shift to the middle school and shift to the high school as our plan moves through the three levels. You'll learn a little bit more about that.
I'm
when
going
we
to
talk
do the
about
happy
the plan.
dance.
You keep saying that, but I never see it.
So, as I said at the beginning of this, our plan is to present this framework to the board for approval in July, at the July board meeting. And if it's approved, then we will move forward with our implementation plan and starting to introduce teachers, expose them, give them a chance to play. And of course, all of this is connected to our technology plan and where we're going, which you're going to hear that part next. So before we move on to that next part and I let these folks leave, do you have any specific questions for these folks? And do we want to get any objections to this particular framework at this point from board members?
Objections?
Yeah. Well, you know.
I think it's great and overdue and fantastic, and thank you for.
I object to waiting until July. You should do it now, so. but-
Any community questions before these folks go?
Yes. I was wondering how you guys determined the timing of introducing the concept of standards and reinforcing and all of that. So what made you decide that something would start in first grade and you'd be proficient sometime?
That was based on the committees, so we had a committee of people throughout the district that came together, and that was with central administration, principals, librarians, teachers, and so forth, all came together, and based on our district and what we have available and so forth, and what we felt was best for our students, we decided on where it should be introduced, reinforced, et cetera.
And they also, Margaret, looked at age appropriateness.
Mhm.
So some of the standards, when you look at what the standard is asking a student to be able to do, it's not age appropriate for a 5-year-old to be able to do that yet. So that was also another piece. Having teachers from multiple grade levels in the room think about what it is that students are doing at different grade levels. They were able to match what this standard is saying to what we would expect a student at that grade level to be able to do, which is why they came up with the 4 levels and decided where things were introduced, reinforced, proficient, and application.
And also, I was thinking that, like, especially because, well, a lot of the younger students have like already like will be like the digital natives, they're already like interacting with technology like outside of school. Like how that would like interact with like they're learning technology in school. Because just thinking like if we're going to like keep these standards for a while, but that like students are the way they learn like their backgrounds in technology will change like throughout the years. Like how like are these standards like evolving with that?
So like most curriculum and standards, in particular, curriculum is a living document. That's something that you continually look at and revise. So to your point of how our students continue to learn and how technology continues to change and what they're exposed to, as we continue to understand our students, we will look at these standards and see, all right, do we need to make any changes to when certain things are introduced because of the experiences our students are bringing with them to school? And that's something that our teachers and a lot of the folks that were part of this work will be able to review periodically and make changes as needed.
It's very also like how, like to get to know like what experience the students bring to school, like or with engaging students, like asking the students themselves like what are they doing?
Well, I think the teachers talk to their students and they know what students are doing at home and how they're using computers and iPads and technology. So they are getting feedback from their students. Did this committee in particular reach out to the students and ask them? No, but they work with these students every day and talk with them every day, so they do have a sense of what kids are doing and what they know.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah. First of all, I'm excited about this particular conversation because I just left a conversation with a middle school team that was talking a lot about how the children are misusing technology, and some who are using it appropriately. I've seen in a lot of our classes, like Rolling Hills with Mr. Francis, how he's used his technology with the kids. I'm watching my kids grow now in the high school and how the world is changing and how they're able to keep up. So what I commend this discussion here is that this project you're implementing looks like you're starting it from kindergarten, and you're going to the 12th. So to me, that's curriculum that's involved and that you're investing in something very early on so it can become part of what they learn and how they behave over time, which I think is a great solution to what we can sense is becoming where some kids, in your example, are left behind. So I just applaud this effort, and again, it looks like Councilor Rocky, we are ahead of the game, which is nice. And it's exciting to know that the kids are in that type of district. But I think that curriculum, and I think that's where you were going to, where do you start and where do you stop? These kids who are coming in kindergarten, you're starting there, and you'll follow them to 12th grade. So it'd be nice to see what happens in the next 3 years if we're able to get more funding to continue to keep it going. So I enjoyed this dialogue. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, so the next part of our technology presentation has to do with our plan, which, as I have said, is a 3-year plan, and really starts with what are our goals for technology, and both Matt and I are going to talk about this plan a bit. So I'm going to start with our goals for technology. So as a district, these are the things that we really want to focus on over the next 3 years. First is equity of access across the elementary schools. As many of you know and have heard, we have different amounts of technology in our 10 elementary schools. And some of that is due in part to the gracious donations and work of our PTOs who have raised money and used those funds they've raised to purchase devices for the classrooms and for the schools. So that's been a wonderful gift and wonderful thing that our PTOs have done, but our goal is to create equity. And so that's one of the things that's part of our 3-year plan. At the elementary level, our goal is a 1-to-2 ratio of a device to student. So we'll have one laptop cart or one Chromebook cart, excuse me, for every 2 classrooms. Our next goal is increasing access at the middle school. So as we move into 2 middle schools, we want to look at making sure those teams have equitable access to devices so that we have one Chromebook cart for every 2 classrooms in the middle school as well. We're also going to be exploring devices at the high school level from a content perspective. So what we do know is that based on different content areas at the high school, students need the devices to do different things for them. So for example, in an English classroom, having a Chromebook that you can just access Google and work through Google and Office 365 is fine. But in, say, a science class or a physics class where it might be better for you to have a touchscreen capability with a stylus where you can write formulas or draw things that you need to do, we want to make sure that we look at, are we getting devices that are reflective of the needs of the content area? So that's one of our goals to look at the high school level. One of the other goals there is that we want to provide teachers with technology to support their work and initiatives. One of the things in Council Rock is that our teachers don't have laptops. They work with desktops. And in order to be able to really, practice things and engage not only with your students but with your colleagues, having a mobile device is a little bit better of a tool than a desktop that is connected just to this one spot, and you really can't work with it unless you're sitting at the desk. And then the final thing is the training and support to our teachers with the curriculum, the technology, and the teaching. So our goals, those are our technology goals. And what we're going to talk about is our 3-year budget plan that starts with next school year. So the current budget that you've been presented with as a board incorporates this in the budget, the plan for our first year with technology. So Matt's going to talk a little bit more about that plan and where we're going each of those years.
I can actually do this.
Oh.
So basically, we've spent a lot of time actually this whole year discussing what made sense for Council Rock in terms of access to devices, access to technology, and where we should start versus how we can do this. We thought, the board's going to give me $5 million, I'll just do this in one fell swoop. We didn't think that that was going to happen. So we tried to come up with a plan that took into account what teachers have to deal with in terms of the initiatives that they're working with, the introduction of new technology, the introduction of the PLCs, everything that the teachers are going to be involved with the next 3 years. And what we did is Barry and Sue and I sat down and had several meetings. We talked about, all right, what is the district going to look like over the next 3 to 5 years in terms of what we're asking the teachers to do in the classrooms with their students and what we're asking them to do outside of the classroom, and how can we make this a better experience for the teachers and for the students. So we came up with an integrated plan that incorporates the concepts of the PLC teams, the concepts of access to devices. It's a 3-year plan, so year 1, which would be this coming year, if you approve the budget next week, hopefully. Basically what we're going to do is deploy one Chromebook cart for every 2 classrooms in every elementary school. This does take into account the existing Chromebook carts that are existing in classrooms now, so we're not going to be duplicating. For example, Newtown Elementary School only needs, I think, 3 or 4 carts, and then they'll be at the 1 cart for every classroom, whereas Churchville has none. So they'll get, the full fell swoop. So to do that, this is how many Chromebooks we need to purchase, how many Chromebook carts we need to purchase, and then we need approximately 419 teacher laptops with docking stations. So in every classroom at the elementary school level, what will happen is we'll take out the desktop, we'll put in a docking station to connect the smart board and all the other peripheral devices to, so the teacher can actually pick up the laptop take it home if they choose to, or just leave it on their desk if they're so inclined. Give them the year to adjust to that ability to have that. But we realize we can't do this in a vacuum, so we're figuring out how are we going to do the staff development? How do we get them the training they need? So we came up with this idea is we'll take 2 elementary school technology evangelists, pull them out of the classroom for a year. These 2 individuals will split the elementary schools, and one will have 5, the other will have the other 5. They'll work with the building administrators, because every elementary school is at different levels with technology. They'll work with the administrators and the technology coaches that already exist within the buildings, and they'll introduce them to CRETs. They'll make sure everybody understands the CRETs and how they work, get the teachers comfortable with that, get them comfortable with the Chromebooks, how they can integrate the Chromebooks into the lesson plans. And so that by the end of the year, at the elementary level, the teachers will be comfortable with the technology, comfortable enough that those 2 teachers can return to the classroom, and we can jump to the middle schools. 2018, 2019, that's where we collapsed from 3 to 2 middle schools. Once again, we're going to roll out 1 Chromebook cart for every 2 classrooms. Works out to about 3 carts per team. Once again, we give the teachers laptops with docking stations. And then we take 2 middle school technology evangelists, pull them out of the classrooms. They spend the year 1 full time in each middle school because it's a little bit different environment. And as needed, they'll also be able to drop down to the elementary schools if there are questions that come up based on the workload in the middle schools. Because once again, those 2 middle schools are going to be brand new in terms of the staffing and how they're working and the teams. It's going to be a new environment.
But your technology will be state of the art in terms of your infrastructure.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So, and they're already seeing that in Holland with those short throw projectors, and they're embracing that in the sound field. So it's really good. So at the end of year 2, beginning of year 3, that's when we roll out. And the high schools I'm treating is actually a 2-year. This is just the first of the 2 years. The high schools, we're going to roll out 1 cart for every 2 regular education classrooms. That doesn't take into account the industrial arts area, the physics area, the highly specialized areas where we may need to use a different type of Chromebook, or the Chromebooks may not be the right tool. Maybe it's a laptop, maybe it's an iPad with probes, but that gives us a couple of years. It'll be year 3, and then year 4 we'll refine it if we need to buy additional equipment. But what we'll do next year, during the next year and the middle school year, is we'll be meeting with the high school folks to make sure that when we roll this out year 3 in the high schools, we've taken into account what we need. But by the end of year 3, all the teachers in the district will have laptops, and also by doing it in a 3-year, and at the high schools, what we'll be doing is, once again, the middle school teachers will go back and we'll pull out 2 teachers, 0.5 each at each high school. So there'll be 4 technology integration specialists, but each one will be 0.5. That way they'll be able to, it's a larger population, they'll be able to cover more people, they'll be able to work together. And the goal is then, by doing this over a 3-year period, I can work this into my normal rotation for the refresh of equipment, so there isn't this massive stress on the budget every year. And hopefully by the end of year 3, we'll be in a good position. We'll have reached not a quote 1-to-1, basically, but the technology will be there. The whole concept of this is technology, like Sue had said earlier, it's just one of the tools in a teacher's toolbox. And what we want to make sure is that they have the tools they need in their toolbox available to them when they need them. And we discuss this a lot with teachers as well, and they feel 1 cart between the 2 teachers. They can do their lessons so that when they need them, they're available. And that's our plan to start out with.
But your operating system is Chromebooks. What's the operating system? Are you
Google Chrome?
So using Google Chrome.
The advantage of that is the teacher laptops, we install the Chrome browser. Now everything that they have in the Chromebook with the Google Chrome browser, they can experience the same thing. So they can do the apps and everything on their laptops that they're having the kids do on the Chromebooks.
I got that part of it. My question really was related to, by example, I use Ready Cloud or Cloud Ready Cloud. Neverware thing on a machine at home. It's an old machine, so I use that. It's like Neverware on it. Works great. You told us at a public meeting that if a kid had a machine, not in school, but if a kid had a machine at home running a Chrome environment, I think you said they could connect to our school district environment?
The way it's set up is if they go to Google Chrome at home and log in with their school username and password,
right,
whatever environment we have set up for that user account here will get replicated to their desktop at home.
Okay, and so therein lies my query on this, really, which says, for the machine I use at home, I have it, what's it called, Ready Boot or something, I have it on a USB stick. And I boot from the USB, and it's Chrome. The machine's really a Windows XP machine, whatever it is, but it's, so I was trying to figure out, I want to make that transition for kids at home the same, so they could do that. We could actually give them, or they could configure a USB stick, and on any machine they wanted to.
But they don't have to.
Right.
All they have to do is install the Google Chrome browser. So if they have a Mac or a Windows PC or a Linux box, they install the Chrome browser, and then Chrome asks you to log in. When they log in with their username and password, they replicate, the apps come down. It's exactly like they have on the Chromebook at school.
That's what, I apologize, if you covered that
No, that's
already,
okay.
but for me, that's a continuity for what they're doing at school and what they're doing at home. And apparently, if they save something, it saves to their school place.
So their Google Drive, which
So-
they have access to anywhere.
Okay, yeah, no, this is,
I have a question. So the elementary school, well, and then all the way up to high school, who tracks the inventory? Who's responsible for those? Are you assigning them by classroom, so classroom teacher?
We have an inventory system, we track everything, so we'll know where they are. And part of the Chromebooks, there's called a Chrome management tool. So I actually, every time that device, anywhere it is, I can see the management tool exactly where it is.
Okay. So could a teacher lend a Chromebook to a kid to take home? There's a kid, our district doesn't have a computer at home, wants to.
So we already have a loaner program for students in our libraries in high schools in particular, where if a student doesn't have a device at home, they can
So that's
get one
where
on
it
loan
exists.
from the library and take it
That's where
home.
it exists.
Right.
It'd be like you're sitting in English class, you're like, can I take this home tonight?
But the librarians actually barcode them, and the kid signs them out like they do a textbook, and they can take them home.
And for these integration specialists, how they be determined? Have you already isolated people who you're going to encourage to apply? Is it, or are you just, how does that work?
We all know who you want. No, I'm just kidding. Basically, if you guys are okay with this approach and this plan, the next step would be for Sue and I to sit down and come up with a job description. And
I
then we
mean,
would
it's easier at
advertise
the
it.
higher levels. I'm just like in the elementary school, there's probably a lot of people, I mean, I don't know.
Well,
Not
I mean,
a
just
lot,
like
I
you
mean,
would
but
go
there's
through
a-
an interview process
I mean,
and
this
get a
is
job description.
This is
figure
opposed to
out-
job like everything else.
Yes.
And you
And
still
one
take
year
our
for-
mentors?
Correct. So it would be like you come out of the classroom for a year, do this, and then you go back into your
So the
classroom.
800,000 or whatever was in year one, is that already in the budget?
It's in the budget for this year.
So this is your whole plan for your budget, really?
But I have a question. So the high school is twice the size of the middle school. And even though it's 4 people, they're half time. So you have 2 people for the middle schools and basically 2 people for the high schools. Is that enough?
We've discussed this quite a bit.
I mean, obviously it's a few years off and you could change that, but I'm just saying that it's still.
We think so. And the reason that we think so is one of the advantages that the middle schools have is, first of all, they have a teacher that teaches the technology to the students.
Right.
So they have that. They have phenomenal librarians like Barb Tiger,
Right.
who also does workshops. They have the technology coaches. They also have 2 technology coaches that they can take advantage of. And there are a lot of teachers that are already up to speed. Is it enough? We don't know. Would I love to have more? Yeah, but we think that this is the right fiscally responsible approach. If we get into a situation where we're desperate and it's definitely not working for us, I'm not shy about coming back and asking for more.
I mean, obviously it's a little ways off and you'll have 2 years of experience using these integration specialists to know, but just intuitively to me, the middle schools, 900 kids, whatever, you have 1 in each building, and then you're talking about the 2 high schools, which is twice the number of students and probably a lot more than twice the number of teachers. It just seems like understaffed.
Well, it's 2 for the elementary school, so 1 for 5 elementary schools with a number of.
No, and, right. I
So we feel, I mean, would it be great to have more? Sure. But I think, like Matt's saying, trying to balance all that we need in this plan to move forward, we think that this is the right balance right now. The other piece with the high school ones, if you saw they were 0.5, it was because we think it's important also to consider technology integration specialists from different subject areas. So someone who has more of the language background, whether it's social studies, English, and someone who maybe has more of a math science background, because how you incorporate devices and what you might do varies. So having some expertise relative to content might be beneficial at the high school level as opposed to at the elementary level.
And you'll have that many more specialists by the time you get there, which will help.
Is $1,000 a piece for those laptops enough? It's gonna buy you a docking station and
We
an extra
actually,
power supply for the
we just
technology.
opened bids, the bid on Tuesday, and
Yes?
Yes.
All right, just making sure. 'Cause it's not just the box. I mean, you know, you've got,
Yes.
people are gonna take them home, they need, they have to plug them in at home. That's a question.
Just a question, so with technically, I think this is an awesome plan, first of all, it's very exciting to see this kind of thing. So planning for obsolescence, so we have, how do we take into account, we're going over a 3-year period. By the time we get to high school, how do we, what's the actual lifespan of Chromebook right now? What's that?
8 to 10 years for a Chromebook. So there's a reason we're not letting, there's a reason why we're not doing a one-to-one where the kids take them home.
Yeah.
They're gonna have a much longer lifespan if we keep them in the buildings.
Obviously, yes.
So right now, looking at the battery life, the condition of the machines, Google license is 5 years, the management license, but they're not shutting it off at the end of 5 years. There are people getting 8, 10, 11, 12 years out of their Chromebooks. A Chromebook is really just a browser in a laptop mode, so you know that.
Very
So there's no
my
moving
concern.
parts inside of it, so they last a lot longer.
Okay, so I guess my question within that budget then, I mean, last year, we didn't have phones like this, and we take these huge steps that we don't know about. Is there a plan for unknown technology advances that we?
Sure, I face that every year. I have a rotation, I have an inventory of all the equipment in the district, and I know when it's gonna hit its lifespan. Like computer desktops, we look to replace them every 4 years, but I know that if I have to stretch it to 5 years, I can. Laptops, 4 years, if I have to stretch it to 5 years, I can. The Chromebooks, right now I'm budgeting 5 years, anticipating that I'll probably get 8 years out of them. So the other reason I want to spread this out over 3 years is it makes it easier for me to work it into the rotation.
Thank
So
you, I
it's-
was just wasn't sure how. Thank you.
So can we just let them get through unless it's
When it
directly
comes to
related to this? Thank you,
So,
Nancy.
so this plan really connects to some of our district initiatives, first with professional learning communities. So you think about teachers having a mobile device that they can actually take with them to a meeting or take home, or in different ways that they can more easily engage with each other, share ideas, explore practice and data together. They can also use, with students having more access to the devices, administer common formative assessments using technology, which right now they might not have the capability to do because they have to reserve the computer lab to go down and do something. So it can really help support our continued journey towards becoming a professional learning community. When we talk about the credits that you heard earlier this evening, and Matt's kind of alluded to this as well, having this plan in place gives our students more opportunity to practice, gives our students an opportunity to integrate across content areas, gives our teachers a little bit more time to practice if they have their own laptop that has the Google Chrome on it that they can engage in what their students are doing, and they can also model the integration with using a mobile device themselves. And when we look at, you knew we were looking at a learning management system, and we kind of put that on the back burner temporarily because of some of the other challenges with a student information system and trying to make sure this all works together. When we fully implement a learning management system, with this plan in place, our students will have better access to courses. The teachers will be able to better access student work and documents more easily. Teachers can use the devices to develop lessons. Students will be able to use the devices to engage with each other in a digital way. And teachers will also be able to collaborate through the learning management platform as well. So this plan really supports a few of our initiatives and where we're moving as a district relative to teaching and learning. So again, back to that kind of graphic to show you like the center of all this is our students learning. And technology really is a tool to help support their learning and the teaching and the curriculum as well. So questions about our 3-year technology plan?
Why does a teacher need a laptop instead of Chromebook?
So one of the tools that we have available is the interactive whiteboards. And there's software that comes with that that you can't install on a Chromebook.
You couldn't
We
run
tried.
that,
I am such a convert.
but you couldn't run that from like a Raspberry Pi or something? Wait.
No.
You couldn't run that from a Raspberry Pi or something, a smaller device that we could leave connected, low power in the room?
The answer is yes, we could. The problem is the teacher can't take that home with them to develop the lesson plans.
Or to meetings or
to meetings.
No, I'm trying to split the baby and the bathwater, which is, the difference was laptop versus Chromebook. So if they have to develop in situ in something that supports that supports the whiteboard, yeah, then they need a laptop. But to take to meetings and whatnot, they can take a Chromebook, which is much less expensive, less maintenance. So
We looked at, and we did spend a lot of time looking at Chromebook versus laptop for teachers. With a lot of the learning tools that they're using in the classroom now, they come with teacher modules that the teachers will now be able to also install on their laptops to work on.
the
once
price
again when they're
differentiation on a laptop to a, it's narrow.
It's astronomical.
Is it really that big
It's
now?
astronomical. So the laptops that came in, the price for the laptops are between $850 and $925.
So 4 times the price of it.
Yes.
And it's not even not so much a pricing issue as I was thinking as we get into security beyond security beyond security. If your Chromebook can't hold information because you can't download as much, everything you do will be on the shared server. I mean, one of the issues we have at work is that people download stuff onto their laptops and that's what they use, and then somebody puts out an updated version, and they never go out to the internet to get the updated version because they're using what they've saved from the laptop. And there are some security issues. So the money would be amazing, and we will should watch it, but I think there's something to be said for having to have everything you work on for work stored on a work server, not on your device.
So the teachers probably won't have the ability to store locally to their machines because we don't enable that feature. We disable that.
So if they're just downloading stuff, will it be downloaded on the shared drive?
So they'll have workspace on their laptops that they can use, but they'll access, the materials they access will probably be on their H drive or their S drive or in the cloud, right? We're encouraging them, we're going to encourage them to use the G drive or the Google Drive or Sky Drive, whichever flavor they want to go with.
So I trust you to look at this, you're the one who talked me to the Chromebooks, but I'm just saying we might want to look at it each year because if we can move in that direction, it seems to make.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that probably in the next 5 to 7 years,
Yeah.
we'll be to the point where we can do with the Chromebooks, but right now, there's still some specialized software the teachers use in their classrooms that they'll still need. We need a laptop.
I'm with it.
Latte Panda can't do it. Latte Panda can't do it.
Sorry.
Any other board comment?
Yeah, I'm just waiting to.
I'm sorry, I was just.
Are you kept with these laptop purchases, are you buying a couple spares for the?
Yes.
Because it does happen, you want your staff to take your computers home and they're doing meetings and they forget.
Yes.
To your point about Chromebooks, if I'm a teacher and I'm grading and using spreadsheets, that screen's entirely too small to do anything.
They make Chromebooks.
But I mean, at some point you're reaching a laptop class, machine with touch screens.
I'm not in the company, I don't like converted things.
And the other piece to your question is also when you think about if teachers, if they're coming to say, here to Chancellor for training, and they're bringing their laptop, well now their laptop's not in their classroom.
Well, there's that part too.
So the other piece is having extra devices that a substitute then has to be able to take attendance or do the, connect to the interactive whiteboard. things.
That's exactly to Wendy's point, or I don't know if it was Wendy's point about having the stuff on the network, because one of the things in our policy manual that we just went through had to do with lesson plans. and lesson plans had to be in the book. They had to keep the lesson plan in the book. I think we left the term book for some reason. I don't remember if we did or not, but it had to be left available. And so, right, if we have it on the drive, it's available for the substitute to come in.
So, any other board comments?
Good.
Okay. Any public comments or questions before we move on? Margaret?
I was just curious, actually, so when you're like implementing new technology, like what do you do with the old devices?
So one of the things we do with our older equipment is we actually have companies that will pay us for it. So what we'll do with the old equipment is we'll sell it to the company that will pay us for it, and then that usually covers the cost of implementing, rolling out the new equipment. Because we don't have enough staff to roll out 2,000 Chromebooks, so we hire a company to help us do that. And it's usually at zero cost to the district because they purchase the old equipment as well.
The commissioning is at zero cost. So the disposal of the old one, you understand what I'm saying, like commissioning? Yeah.
Sometimes, some years we make a little money, depends.
Any other questions?
One right here, right?
Yeah, a few questions. So, actually, I thought our question was great. Have you ever thought about donating the old devices since we don't make much money also having a company take care of it?
We make enough money to cover the cost of rolling them out. So
rolling out the new
equipment, covering the cost. So we don't have any place to store 2,000 Chromebooks or 2,000 laptops. So we hire a company to actually receive the equipment, and then they image it for us so that when it's delivered, it can be turned on and used right away. So, and that costs money. So they take the old equipment, and the money they give us usually covers the cost, or we make a little bit. So.
Do you know what they do?
Old equipment?
So I know there's some companies that will, help you with like asset disposal, and they'll actually take it and help you resell it at a lower cost, or
We get a certificate of, we're required to get a certificate from them that they've wiped the machines clean, and then whatever they do with them at that point, it's up to them.
Oh, no, I get that, but I'm saying there's an opportunity to, take it a step further and actually use a company that will do it and, talk about students that don't have access to laptops. There's an opportunity to work with a company that will actually help resell it at a lower value, for people in need. So it's something to think about.
Well, it's an asset of the district, and the district has certain constraints around disposing of assets in terms of putting them out to bid. You do this by bid. It's actually put out to bid for who wants to bid on these used devices. And we're obligated to take the best price we can get for them. I understand your point.
Right.
But we're constrained by.
Companies that they do for corporations, they take all this stuff into account.
If they bid the lowest price, we'll deal with anyone. I mean, if they bid, the highest price, I went backwards. If they bid the lowest price, I'd do it. If they bid the highest price, we'll deal with anyone as long as they meet the criteria regarding destruction.
A lot of information.
Exactly.
Right, so places, throwing something out there. So the cost of the Chromebooks, they get it around $850.
Laptops.
Oh, laptops. Yeah, okay.
A lot less than that.
Okay. And so last comment or question. So I was a little concerned about the technology specialists, the staffing. It seems like it's understaffed for the number of teachers and students. So kind of related question is, when we brought in new technology like the smart boards, what was the transition like for that, especially for teachers that might be,
So we had a lot of workshops for smart boards. We had a lot of workshops during the summers. We also did a train-the-trainer model, so there were multiple teachers in the buildings that were trained on the technology and make it work. And we'll probably, with the technology integration specialist, formulate basically the same type of approach. Each elementary school is slightly different. You have some elementary schools, like Goodnote, for example, they've got a lot of technology. I call them technology evangelists. These are the early adopters. They jump on, Apple hasn't even announced the iPhone 15 and they're already in line behind.
Yeah.
So these are the people that they just absorb the technology and they use it. And so we've got a couple of pockets like that in every school. And those are the people that we like lean on sometimes for the new initiatives. We also have 2 technology coaches who are teachers that are assigned by the principal who help other teachers that are assigned to do that. So there will be faculty meetings, there'll be trainees, the technology integration specialists will be required to hold trainings. But what they'll do is they'll meet with each principal at the beginning of the school year, or probably, if we get them on board during the summer, they'll meet with the principals and they'll already have a game plan lined out for how they're going to get this rolled out. And the reason we're doing it over a year, what we don't want to have happen is on day 1, the teacher walks in, sees a laptop, he said, and is told, all right, you've got to start using this right away, you got to take it on, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. Their heads will explode, but they'll come after me with pitchforks, and I don't really want that to happen. So what we found is a gradual approach is better. We've got people that'll be like 2nd, 3rd week of school, they'll be all over it. There'll be a couple of teachers that'll be to the 6th grade students. Can you show me how to do this? And then, there'll be workshops. So it's different in each, but what we don't want to do is try to say one size fits all. It's much better to approach it just like you would do any educational initiative. You just, what works best in each building.
So is there going to be summer training again?
We always have summer training here.
Okay, so the teachers.
There are 3 or 4 Google Classroom workshops already scheduled. 2 of the trainers are sitting right there. They do these workshops all summer long. So there are Chromebook training.
Very open to coming in, especially if they're going to get new technology. They want to know that they're responsible. They want to be the best teachers that they can be. Don't come in for a day in the summer and learn how to use this new material because they want to be looking at it.
I'm thinking about the teachers that are probably more resistant.
More resistant to that. That may have a workshop during the
Don't worry, they're all going to use it in the end. I've made that very clear. Everyone's going to be using the technology by the end of the year. So, because we can't have non-uniform, we cannot deliver education in a non-uniform anymore.
Many years ago, when we tried to roll out email, this is back in the old Toby days, be like, oh, teachers won't use it, it won't be a thing, and eventually what happened was it became how everybody communicated. Now you would look back at it, so I'm sorry, by the way, but it's, what happens is people know who are good in the schools, they know who are leaders, and once those people start doing things, other people catch on, and it's kind of like dropping the chain off the edge of the desk. Once it gets enough weight behind it, it pulls the rest of the chain amazingly fast. The trick is pick the right anchor.
Nancy, you had comments.
Yeah, I didn't understand the budget. Are you saying you're hiring 2 integration specialists in year 1 for elementary, and then you're going to move that money in the 2nd year to the middle school?
Yes.
So then the elementary schools will no longer have it?
Correct.
Okay. And then you said Churchville didn't have any Chromebooks. I also know Richboro does not have any. Richboro has all iPads.
Richboro has 1.
1 Chromebook, okay. So those schools,
And
I
actually,
think,
within the next 3 weeks, Richboro will have 120.
yeah,
And
Well-
Churchville will have 60. So they were already ordered, they're coming in.
yeah. I just think they're gonna need a extra special help.
Yes, they are, and we recognize that.
And when you have so many teachers who have been doing, they love their iPads and been doing that for so long. Are you gonna start with them?
So that's the role of the tech integration specialist, when that person meets with the building principals
Yeah.
and has a sense of the lay of the land and understands, and keep in mind, this is gonna be an internal person. This is someone who is from our district. And so that person's gonna understand that, all right, Goodnow has already had this and this much and has these people. Churchville hasn't had any. So that person will be going first to that principal at Churchville and saying, okay, how can I help you? Let's talk together about what I can do to support you. And they're going to differentiate their support. So when we talk about an integration specialist working with 5 buildings, that doesn't mean that integration specialist is going to work equally with all 5 buildings. That person is going to make decisions based on the needs of the teachers in that building and what they can do to help support
I would
for them to get to
one of
that
them
point.
Churchville and one of them Richboro, one of them is gonna be overwhelmed. And Goodnow, half the teachers could be the integration specialists. The smart boards, we talked in the committee meeting, technology committee, that you were gonna get rid of smart boards. Are you still
So-
phasing them out?
Yes, as they die, We're replacing them with the short throw projectors.
Are they as interactive?
Yes.
They're as interactive.
And in fact, one of the things we're purchasing district-wide this year is the Active Inspire software, which is the software that the teachers use on their laptops. So it's been sporadic in terms of the version and what schools have what. So we're standardizing district-wide now.
When I tell people we're getting rid of smartphones, they're like, oh my God, you can't do that, you know, but.
This is the
you're saying
next
same-
evolution.
Okay.
What the short throw projector does, Nancy, it mounts right above the board. So the teacher is not blinded by the projector anymore, standing in front of the classroom. It shines directly on the board, and you can use your finger just like you can with the
So your-
smartboards.
Your board becomes the smart board.
Yeah. And the coaches have no time off during the school day. There's coach mentors or whatever. They get no extra pay. When do they do their coaching?
That's up to the individual buildings and the principals, what they've worked out with the teachers. Some do before school workshops, some do after school workshops, and some of them actually do, the building principal will, through getting authorization, bring in a substitute for that teacher for half a day or part of a day, so the teacher can go in the classroom. We're trying to keep it as flexible as possible because each of the buildings is different.
Now, why did you reject getting any technology fees from parents?
Because this model, we don't need to.
And you're also rejecting doing one-on-one at the high school level, right?
Yes, we're looking at devices that are in the high school so that those devices match the content area rather than giving each student a device. What we know is that the vast majority of our students have access to a device at home. For those that don't, they can loan one from the library so that we don't need to have a one-to-one to make sure every student has a device. What we need is students to have access to the type of device in the specific content area in the high school that will be able to meet the needs of that content area.
Will that be one-to-one, or will the physics teachers share whatever the physics teachers need?
That's going to depend on the content area and the devices that they need. For example, I know that in one of the science labs at North, they have iPads with probes. They're not used anywhere else. They're just used in that lab. They're the right device with the right piece of equipment for that lab. They could be used elsewhere, but they're not. They're just used in that lab. And that's what we're going to spend the next couple of years looking at.
And when do you think the time frame is to picking the learning management system?
We actually picked a system. The idea is to start to roll it out towards the end of next year into the following year. The problem we have right now is that our student information system was recently purchased. And that has kind of thrown this up in the air in terms of what are we going to do. If we stick with the system we have now, which we probably will, well, we definitely will for the next couple of years, how does it interface with learning management system that we also picked? If we're forced to transition, will the new system integrate? So those are questions that we weren't looking at answering at the beginning of the school year, that during the school year we're now looking at. So we're going to take a little bit more time.
Is that
We're
a
gonna have to
secret?
start to move on.
Is that a secret? Which one did you pick?
Canvas is the system that, we currently use Canvas, we're continuing with Canvas.
K-12?
We are not moving forward K-12 right now. So we're waiting to move forward K-12 until we have clarity on what's happening with the student information system so that we're sure that things integrate.
How about seventh grade?
We will eventually move K-12, but right now we're sticking with Canvas as we've been using it primarily at the high school.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Let's go over the news, thank you.
Okay, if we could just move on so that we can get to the next topic. I know folks have to get out of here and I know, and maybe shortchange system for a reason.
Yes. Thank you. So the last item on our agenda is really just a very quick update of where we are with just one aspect of diversity and inclusion. And that is really, as was presented, I believe it was in January, the 4 areas of focus for the district. Tonight, I just want to give you an update on the staff training piece of that. And that really is just the purpose of this presentation. So when we think about the staff training piece for diversity and inclusion, there are 3 groups of staff that we're really going to target: our principals, our teachers, and our support staff. And the training is really going to focus on helping to build cultural competence for all groups, as well as specifically to the different groups, helping them deal with interrupting instances of discrimination or intolerance relative to the role that they serve in the school. So I'm going to just go over briefly those 3 groups. First, with our principals, we're going to be working with the consulting group Living Strong, and with that group, they're going to be doing both training sessions with the principals and individual coaching. The focus of the training will be to really help principals begin to unpack system bias and help principals learn to lead conversations about bias within their buildings, and also increase principals' cultural competence. With Living Strong, the training will include 5 learning modules that the principals will engage in, as well as on-site coaching in between each of those 5 modules. And this training will begin sometime in October or November and run through the spring. So that's with our principals. With our teachers, we'll be working with the Peace Center, and with the Peace Center, we've developed a train the trainers model. So the Peace Center will be training teachers from each school to build their capacity and sustainability and build the teachers' ability to lead training in their own buildings. Again, focusing on deepening their understanding of bias, learning to interrupt discrimination, and promoting cultural competence. The teachers will be in 4 training groups. The training groups will be divided by level. So there'll be a high school group, a middle school group, and 2 elementary groups, because in order for Peace Center to effectively work with teachers, we need smaller groups of teachers of about 20 to 30 teachers. So that's why we have the 4 different groups. Each of those groups will have 2 full days of training with the Peace Center. That training will start in October and run through December. And then after that training, they will work with their building principals to look at when do we plan and lead the training in our buildings. The teacher trainers and principals, as they work for this plan, they're looking for a minimum of 8 hours of work with the entire staff. Our goal is to have all of the staff training completed by the end of the 18-19 school year. So when you think about our teachers and our principals going through, the trainers going through this training next year, once they go through that training, they need to think about how do we incorporate this. So they won't be able to really start providing training to the entire staff until at least after the first half of next year at the earliest. So we want to give them enough time to really engage in the training and not feel like they have to rush and try to cram something in by the end of next year. We are also going to work to incorporate training into our induction program. We do not need to do that for our new hires next year because they'll be part of the training that will happen in the building. So we'll be going forward after that point that we'll have to think about how this works into our induction plan and it becomes a part of what we do. And then finally, for our support staff, we are also working with the Peace Center with our support staff and working on finalizing some of those plans, because we have, when you incorporate all of the different support staff that we have in the district, it's about 600 people. So, and different groups, from transportation to food services to recess aides to instructional aides and administrative assistants. We need to figure out how to incorporate all of those folks. So with the Peace Center, they're going to have training on November 7th. Right now is when we're looking at that training day. It's the election day. It's also a day school's closed, so we can better provide time for these folks that they won't be responsible for, say, driving the buses or monitoring recess or different things, that we can pull them together. Again, they will learn to recognize bias and interrupt discrimination, and also work to build their cultural competence as well. The challenge with the support staff is because of the variety of people that we have and trying to put them into groups and match them, as well as their current working hours. Typically our recess aides and our cafeteria aides, when the kids are not in school, they don't work. So we need to really work to bring them in to this training, and also work with our third-party providers like Chartwells and First Student an earmark to be able to incorporate them into the training as well. So Christine Taylor and I have been working with CRESPA and also reaching out to our third-party providers to talk to them about this training and get their feedback on the possibility of November 7th being a day for all of those folks to attend. And so far, the feedback's been, yes, that would be a great idea. We would love that. So we know that we probably won't get everyone. Some of it is because, you know, some of our school secretaries, they need to be in the school, even though the kids are not there, they need to be there that day. So we'll have to have an alternate plan for those folks that are unable to be there on November 7th because of either they have to be doing their job that day or some are unable to make it for whatever reason. So once we get a sense of how many folks and who's attending November 7th, we'll then work on, okay, so what do we do for those that didn't make it, and we'll work out that plan.
This first student, are we gonna have to pay hourly rates for the first student?
So we're working with all of our third-party providers and have asked them to contribute to pay for the training. So we've heard back from some of them saying, yes, we would want to do that. And actually like, okay, tell me how much do I owe right now? Like, okay, you don't have to pay today. We'll work, talk to you about how that's going to work. So we're getting feedback from them in helping to pay for that training.
Right, I was thinking the paying for the training, I don't have a problem with the district paying for the training. My question was the compensation to the employees of First Student who are spending their time at it. Is that something that First Student can step up to as compared to us getting a bill from First Student that includes hours?
Yes, that's part of our conversation with all of them right now to work at how do we make this work within the contracts that you have with the folks that work with us. So that is something that Christine and I are working on. So this gives you kind of a summary of our training and the anticipated impact of this aspect of our diversity and inclusion is that this training will help our teachers refine their teaching and reflect that knowledge in their practice. We believe that our students and our families will feel safe and valued as included as our members of our school community, as our teachers and our staff have a better understanding, and that our staff will feel much more comfortable and equipped to interrupt instances of discrimination and intolerance that they experience or that they see, whether it's in the hallways or in their classroom or things that are part of the books that they're using with students, that they'll better be equipped to have those conversations. So that's our really quick update on where we're going with training. All of this is part of that education initiatives budget that we have, so it's all coming out of that funding.
Questions or comments?
I'm just delighted to see that it's going to happen and different approaches. That company that you're using though for the principals, that's the first I've heard of them. Where did you find them? Do other districts use them?
We actually, I believe, through Robin Johnson, got a contact with them. They have not worked, they're in this area, in this region. They have not worked with too many districts, a couple charter schools and things they've worked with at this point. So
they work with Lower Merion as well.
Yes, Lower Merion, thank you. So that's kind of how our connection was with them. I've met with them. The website or the presentation that's posted on Board Docs, that link is live.
Yeah,
so you can go to you can go to the link and read a little bit more about their company, their consulting, and what they do and what their mission is.
You're talking about the Peace Center?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm terrible.
Living Strong, Nancy.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, this is very exciting. I have a question. So I saw principals and teachers and support staff, but what about the district employees and even our school board members? Are they included in the?
So when you say district employees, what do you mean? These are our district employees, principals, teachers, and support staff.
All of Dr. Frazier's direct reports, and Dr. Frazier, and even the school board, would they not be included in that?
So all of the administrative staff will be part of working with Living Strong.
So they're doing like a principal portion?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to get clarification on it.
Yes. as far as the board, we haven't had that conversation yet.
Oh, so they're not included in the administrators?
We're not paid anything.
We're not paid.
So volunteer torture.
I understand, it seems you guys do so much great work, and the school board seems to be so very involved in making a lot of big decisions for the school that would be appropriate.
Well, I have to commend for this work. I mean, this is really something that is definitely within the district, the training, starting with the training is a must. I mean, we have to work with the teachers, with the principals, with all the administrators to really examine our own biases. And the minute we do that, we're going to start seeing how that is showing in our actions and how we're affecting our teachers. So that's definitely, I commend you for all that work. I do have a question. It looks like you're going to be looking at some impact of the training. We've been discussing about the idea of having a survey. How are you thinking, how are you planning to really show that you are having an impact? How are you planning to do some interviews, questionnaires? How are you going to determine that these trainings are going to work? So that's the question I have. As part of all professional development that we offer in the district, we always gather feedback from teachers on the effectiveness of the professional development, as well as how they might use it or what their needs are. So that will give us some initial data on the effectiveness of that. Now, as far as the impact of it on these aspects that you see here, some of these are things that are a little bit softer things to measure that are going to be a little harder to get a clear, concrete piece of data on, how many times does now a staff member feel, have they experienced something? And so we need to think about.
Are you talking about children? Are you talking about our kids feeling better over time?
The second item is students and families who say valued and included as members of the school community. How do we know that actually families are feeling included? If you don't have baseline data now that shows that maybe 50% of families are not feeling included, what we're hoping is that with all these interventions, right, eventually our kids will feel more connected, will feel more valued, that the school climate is going to be changing throughout the training and the initiatives that the district is implementing. So I think it's important to think about how can we gather data now that everything is fresh and new and these great interventions are occurring in the next year so that we can compare in a year or 2 or 5 and say, hey, this is working. I mean, I'm a data-driven person. I think that I've seen studies that show, when you're doing an intervention, you want to be able to compare, how we're doing. And the only way to compare is to ask people, whether through questionnaires, whether through, interviews, observations. So, that's, something that we as a district should be thinking about, how we're going to make sure that all these initiatives are working and are affecting the families, the students, the teachers, administrators, the community, because we all benefit. It's a community win-win situation. So just an idea that I wanted to plant.
It's an interesting idea, and I just hearing you ask the question is interesting because I'm going through bullet number 2, and I'm just it is not without complexities, and one of those that comes to mind is, if we did that survey this week, okay, we're in the midst of a redistricting discussion. And we would talk about the schools that we just went to and talked to, and they'd give us really low marks this week. I mean, it's just,
You're not asking those questions.
No, but it's interesting. It's interesting because the other thing is, and I guess when we look at it scientifically, it's interesting to think about. It's great to look at it in aggregate, but it also is interesting if there were a way using an anonymized or pseudo-anonymized data to do it longitudinally, because it would be interesting to see individuals change perception rather than a base aggregate. The third graders this year thought this. It's pseudo-anonymized data over time. If we could do it, that would be the interesting aspect. But we have to protect the anonymity of
It's a good
It's a
spot.
good challenge. It's
Yes,
not an
it's
easy
a
thing to
challenge.
resolve.
And you could compare, if you are great on post when you're doing your thing, you have the same
Exactly.
students, on something new, you're having a program where the teachers are gonna be taking the training, you could do upgrade tests and see post days, and maybe even survey them in a year and see how they're doing.
Great.
It's just something.
Anyone else? Others?
Just to add on to, their point, I think it's, well, so number one, I mean, I heard, Jerry Grubb's comment, but I think it's dangerous to make it too complex that you don't even try to do it.
Oh, I'm not advocating
But
that.
no, I'm saying it could be as simple as, I think somebody said, I think you said it, simple as, kind of a pre-training survey, that goes to the teachers and staff, simple questions, about their feelings towards, the topic, and then, a post, training survey. And then there's surveys that could be done at random and anonymously, to teachers, to parents and students alike, to have a baseline to go from, because I agree, if you don't know where you're starting from, then there's no way you can know if you achieve the goal of getting to where you need to be.
If I could just say too, I don't think any member of this board would be opposed to sitting in on any. So I couldn't tell if you were tongue in cheek or if you really, so, I mean, we're out and it could certainly be open to us. I'm sure it's not a challenging.
I can appreciate that, and it did seem like you guys had a little bit of a visceral reaction, and I can appreciate this, we district review, there's a lot of stuff going on, but I do think if we're setting a baseline for all that.
Listen, we sit here, these guys do the hard work, we sit here, we spend a lot of time. So if that's, something worth a discussion, we're certainly happy to have.
I feel like I'm always in the diversity of comments, right? Talking about. But, if we just to all be on the same page to set that baseline, I think that we could do that. And I do see it.
So do I, that's why
No, excuse me, sincere. I have a very technical question. And it may be too early to decide that. So you said 2 full days of teaching. No, over there. I see it. 2 full days of teaching on the, or training for the principals, you said on that one? Was that what you
No,
said?
that's for the teachers. The principals will have 5 learning modules, so 5
Okay,
days.
so it's the legal leader one that did the 2 full days. So is that in-person training or is
Yes,
that intended to be?
with the
Okay.
Peace Center.
Okay. So.
2 days of training with the Peace Center.
Okay. All right, thank you. That was just a technical question. Thank you.
I have a question and a comment. You went through a slide around the teachers, and I saw October, December, but I saw completion 2018 to 2019. Did I read that correctly?
That's correct. So what the 2 days of training will be for the teachers who will be trained as trainers for in their buildings. And then they will have until the end of the 18-19 school year to have worked with the entire staff in that building to provide training.
Okay,
So it's going to take some time for the teacher trainers to work with their building principals, develop a plan for how are we going to provide this training in our building with our teachers, and then implement that plan within the constructs of the amount of in-service time that we have within the district and time that we can provide this training. So they have to kind of build that into their time.
Okay, so that's helpful. So but the initial training will take place this year in 2017.
For the teacher trainers.
For the teacher.
With the trainers.
For the trainers.
And then for all the teachers, it'll take a while to cycle all of them through. So it'll be small
Wow.
groups, it's small group training.
Trainers?
So some of
Yes.
them will start in the second half of this year, but other ones we won't be able to get to until the 2018-19 school year.
Okay, so the impact of all this will take
It'll
almost
take
a year and a
years.
half
Yeah,
or
a year and a half to 2
2
years. It will.
Yes.
That's because we have so many
Education,
teachers.
It doesn't move very fast at all. It just doesn't.
Yeah, it's the number of people relative to the amount of time that we have available.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking to understand, but first of all, it's nice that we're having the discussion. It's nice to see the bullet points that we're having, we're trying to address the topics that were brought up, so that's exciting. And it looks like we have, we met that in the plan, so. Just listening to the discussion, it sounds like just from a community and more so of a concerned parent, just watching my children, be a part of what may be going on in the community these days. This gives me a lot of hope that we're going in the right direction, so I thank you all. The comment I want to make is, and I'm just watching a little bit of the body language, and I feel like the elephant in the room, and I thank you for kind of speaking up and addressing this young lady's question when she stood, and I'm not going to speak on your behalf, but it wasn't to insult the board at all, and I'm sorry if we insulted you up front. You volunteer for this torture is the word I heard, and I heard that, and I just got to tell you, the elephant in the room, when I hear that, first of all, we appreciate the volunteer. Okay, I appreciate that, and I thank you. From a working person who wish I could volunteer more, going out of your way, we appreciate that. So I want to make sure that that's out there. But when I'm hearing words like the torture, or it feels like we're running out of time and we need to get out of here for something that's so important, it feels dismissive and it's a little disturbing. So first of all, I want to apologize on behalf of everyone if we're making you feel that your volunteering is that we're intruding. However, from a diversity standpoint, I don't care whether you're in corporate America, I don't care whether you're parenting, whether you're in the school system. I think it's something that we all need to do. And for being part of the board, I wouldn't see any reason why we wouldn't be open to that type of discussion. So just body language and some of the comments that were shared really was kind of took me back, and I thought that was a very innocent conversation.
If I sound offensive, I apologize. I appreciate everything you just said. Our schedule is not your problem. There have been, I would go so far as to call them scheduling conflicts this week, though we have figured out how to do everything we had to do. So this board has been out every night this week at redistricting meetings and discussions. In an ideal world,
And
we'd
in each one
never
of
have
those
scheduled
meetings,
these
that
items.
was the most important thing to those people in the world.
But can I finish
Yes.
for 1 minute? In an ideal world, we would never have scheduled these three topics after 3 nights out. So you didn't get your due. You didn't get the time perhaps, or you feel rushed, and I certainly can absolutely understand that. Some of it was unforeseen. I'm not suggesting anybody made any scheduling mistakes, but everybody here is invested and part of it and interested in the conversation.
So with that being said, I echo earlier question, comment, and appreciate your response that, so I don't think the board should have to do, 4 and 2 and 5 days of training. I agree that would be a lot to take on for your roles that you play, but at least some exposure to the training, I think would be mandatory.
What is hard too is, would we be separate training because we all have full-time jobs as well?
I think there's.
And that's our problem to figure out.
There's another minor portion as to consider. It's that the staff and the teachers who are being trained here, I don't know that they've had any other opportunity to receive this sort of training.
That's what I was thinking.
Many of the board members work in large multinational, multicultural organizations and have had rounds of diversity training. It may not be the same that's going on here, but we've had, some of us have had, I can't speak for everybody.
Annually, yeah.
Yeah, so part of it is, yeah, it would probably be a good thing to go through in this, to experience the same thing our staff and teachers and students should be exposed to. But part of it is also that the first round of staff is, many of these staff members will not have had a professional opportunity to have this before. There's a requirement in my company every year. By example, we do, we had to retitle it because titling it sexual harassment training was not a good thing. It was sexual harassment awareness, I get the title wrong, but you know what I mean. So that I'm fine to go to any training. I go to anything, I don't care. It's a learning experience. Life is a learning experience. But that's one of the aspects too, is that some of the board has, in a professional experience, has exposure to it.
And so this is a counterpoint to that, and I agree. I think it's important to understand to what extent everybody's had that type of training, because I think if everybody has had that type of training, on their own jobs, then the way that a lot of things have been handled may not have been handled in the way that they would have been handled if the proper training that's relative to what's really going on within the school district, because the training you receive at the corporate level, like, I do, is very different from how you handle the school atmosphere.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times, there's a lot, you guys have mentioned it, a lot of times corporate training is very focused on sexual harassment, and just, specific issues with the corporate environment. But at the corporate environment, there's HR diversity programs, across the board, whereas at the school level, there's not. So it's a very different environment in comparison.
It's also public versus private.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a big
So things
difference,
can be handled differently, but, and I don't mean that as a,
That's what I'm saying, yes.
yeah, I'm not being critical at all, I'm just kind of,
It's a conversation.
My goal, to be honest with you, and I've shared this many times with many people in this room, is that you just have to, we have to think differently. We can't just keep thinking the same way, and that's what diversity inclusion is all about. We have to think differently and try to communicate differently and try to understand each other differently. So we can't just kind of go with the same thinking, the same mindsets, otherwise we're stuck in the same rules.
Which is the point of this
Yes,
training, is
exactly,
to really work
exactly,
on. And I think too,
And I commend this as well. So.
the point of 2 years, in addition to the number of staff that we have to roll through training and support, is that when you're talking about changing the way you think or respond or how you view and understand bias and identity, that is not something that can happen in a one-day training and suddenly. So it takes time, and that is also very intentional here. There's an intentionality to selecting a trainer of the trainers model so that we build that sustainability in the buildings to support that continued conversation and growth. And then the work with the principals, being the 5 modules and the on-site coaching, is intentional to help to build that thinking. It is not a quick one-time fix, and we recognize that, and that is why it is as long as it is, and even at the end of 1819, it's never done.
Right.
But that is right now, that's our plan, that's our goal of where we're going with it, and when we get to that point, we'll be able to have a better sense of what we need to do to continue.
Yeah, I think this is great that it sets the stage for 5 years from now, to have a whole different environment, so.
I want everything to go faster in school, so I mean,
We all do.
seriously, I mean, this,
You have to admit though, to your point,
this
this
really
went,
fast.
and it doesn't feel
seem
fast, I get it.
It's-
This went
Yeah, this
for
is,
what we are usually able to.
yep.
Well, this is clear, and there's a process, and there's steps, and you're gonna do it right, you wanna do it right.
Yep.
So that's what this actually spells out, and I applaud the group for that. And I think when we come back next time and we address the other 3 items, by the time we intertwine all the things that we'll be working towards, it'll probably help us get there even, maybe faster.
If you go back to the discussion of technology where the teachers are training teachers, and even at the end of year 1, if everybody is not trained, you will still start to change the culture. And our teachers will learn from one another. That would be my hope, and I presume that's the goal in part as well. That's our best way to change the culture.
Margaret?
Yes, I just wanted to mention that, at least at my high school, there is a diversity advisory committee. I'm actually part of that committee, and I was thinking that perhaps, this is a effort to increase the diversity training. It could be involve us as well. That perhaps we could be is sort of like a diversity police, especially helping to improve the student culture, considering diversity and inclusion, especially outside of the classroom, because teachers can do well in the classroom, but outside, I think maybe that could be where the diversity advisory committee could have its impact. So I feel like that in order to do that, we might need training ourselves, especially since right now we're currently trying to do things intuitively, sort of you really would. Just from what we kind of imagine, and then also juggling a lot of us high that with a lot of homework and all of that, and so perhaps adults could help us organize maybe like, well, diversity learning experience for students, because I feel like even though like diversity is included, like the health plus curriculum, which like, I mean, that's only in 10th grade for most students, really that's not enough. I mean, it's not reinforced, and it's like to a lot of students, like health classes, like many other classes kind of feels like drudge work, like, okay, so I'm learning this, maybe it just feels like something that, it just is tested on. So like, and other, like if you reinforce like in other contexts, I feel like it would, like, more students would get the message.
Well, and one of our 4 areas of focus is student engagement and programming. However, tonight's update is just about the staff training piece. So we are focusing on that aspect as well. We're not updating on that this evening. But the committee that you're on in your school is part of that aspect that we've been working on. But in our high schools, we have some more student involvement with diversity and inclusion committees or clubs, as opposed to in the elementary school where we don't have a student involvement in that aspect yet, but that could be something that would be down the road.
We have a diversity committee in the elementary schools.
Yes, you do. Not necessarily students are part of that. Your committees are mostly parents and teachers, right?
Oh, students are.
Yes,
Students are
part, yes.
That's great, actually, confusing.
Okay, are we good? Thank you, everybody, for coming. Meeting adjourned.